It is the 31st of the 7th, 2013. This is your Radioactive Reality. Let's get started. Any news? Blowout in Gulf of Mexico still leaking. Scientists checking for pollution are not allowed within 5 miles of the site. Sheen continues to be observed. Fireboats remain nearby. Gas could impact offshore ecosystems, and they're going on and on about this dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico, and they're blaming the nitrates from the Mississippi River, which is a major problem in itself. But these leaks continue, and the Gulf of Mexico is just a big bowl after all, and all that corrects it, and Cynthia and God knows what else they put in there is still churning around there in the Gulf of Mexico. Uranium-contaminated plume covers 125 acres of U.S. nuclear site. Over 300 pounds of uranium a year are flowing into the Columbia River. Now, this is the Hanford nuclear waste disposal site that's been having problems for decades now with tanks leaking and open pits and everything else. And here we go, leaking directly into the Columbia River. Official reveals contamination levels at Fukushima plant are likely higher outside the reactor units than inside. Serious threat if trenches leak a large amount of water. Now, as I reported yesterday, they don't know where all these trenches are. All the updated blueprints of the Fukushima site are locked away in a contaminated building they can't get into. Alarm bells over state of Fukushima plant. Government will investigate how radioactive contamination is impacting life in the Pacific Ocean. Quote, problems are more complicated than we initially thought. 2.5 years later, they're just getting around to this? I smell a big old turd. Government extremely radioactive tunnels at Fukushima must be drained. Contamination is from melted fuel. Nuclear material going through the gravel and into the ocean? Question mark. Well, after number 3 blew up, how much of that stuff went directly into the ocean anyway? We all saw it go sky high with nuclear material everywhere. Japan government intervening at Fukushima nuclear plant will take over, measure radiation levels. Top official question accuracy of TEPCO's data on contamination. And you got to remember, the Japanese government owns the majority of stock in TEPCO. So the Japanese government and TEPCO are one and the same. So here we go with a nice little flip-flop. Don't worry, folks, we're on it. 2.5 years later. Arnie Gunderson, Fukushima Daiichi has contaminated the biggest body of water on the planet, aka the Pacific Ocean. Radioactive leaks to harm marine and human life. The whole Pacific Ocean is likely to have cesium levels 5 to 10 times higher than at peak of nuclear bomb tests. Now, we all know Arnie Gunderson likes to wear padded gloves, and he had no mention at all of the plutonium problem or the MOX fuel. And, it's going to take a little more than 300 years, Arnie. It's going to take a little more than that. Over to Daily News, Fukushima Diary. In the worst case scenario, groundwater may overflow to upground. Now, you got to remember, they're making this impervious wall around Fukushima to try to keep the groundwater from leaking directly into the sea. And what they're creating is a giant bowl. And where's the other story? And they're saying accumulated groundwater may overflow to upground in early August. They discovered the sea level and groundwater level in the holes are in sync in order to separate the land and the sea, and they are building the wall, of course, to try to catch all this to keep it from leaking into the Pacific Ocean directly. And again, they're creating a big bowl, and what happens when that bowl fills with water? How much longer are they going to be able to do any kind of work if the thing's a big radioactive mud pit? Fukushima nuclear plant area sank 70 centimeters after the 3/11 9.0 earthquake. This is just now coming out. 70 centimeters. Think about that. What would happen to your building if it dropped 70 centimeters all at once? You think they're structurally sound at all? No. The truth leaks out. The truth leaks out. The water level at reactor number 2 Seaside Trench shaft increased by 22 centimeters in only 3 days. Again, this bowl is filling up. Over to SKF, they've got a story out of Detroit. Ideas to save bankrupt Detroit nuclear power plant factory and Obamacare. Nuke for Detroit scheme. A little-known company, American Atomics, has made an offer to Detroit. American Atomics would like to extend an offer to the city of Detroit, one that will not only save Detroit, but will result in Detroit becoming the fastest-growing city on Earth in the past 5 years. They're going to build the world's largest factory and begin mass production our Hope 40 power plant on August 1st, 2018. Now what they want to do is they want to build these fast breeder nuclear generators that they can put on trucks. And insane. So definitely a story you got to read. It goes on and on. The technology that the company plans to develop into mass-produced small nuclear power plants uses liquid metal cooling, something that has not been used in commercial nuclear plants in the United States since Fermi 1. And you got to remember, Fermi 1 was the 94 megawatt prototype fast breeder reactor that had a partial core meltdown in 1966. Yay for Detroit. Over to Informative. On Monday morning this week, TEPCO officials were meeting with experts from Japan's Nuclear Regulatory Authority to discuss ways to mitigate the approach to the nuclear disaster at Fukushima Daiichi. During the meeting, TEPCO officials failed to notify the regulatory body of the rise in the groundwater levels at Fukushima Daiichi, even though the data they had showed the groundwater levels had risen 2.5 meters above the agreed-upon benchmark. Tokyo Electric's failure to report the rising groundwater levels frustrated NRA chairman, who told reporters, quote, TEPCO has no sense of crisis at all, unquote. Understatement. Japan's Nuclear Regulatory Authority is involving itself in measuring radiation levels at Fukushima Daiichi for the first time since the onset of the nuclear disaster, but only after TEPCO announced that it had found extremely high concentrations of radioactive materials in groundwater samples around the site and confirmed that contaminated water was and is leaking into the Pacific Ocean. The insanity continues, and if it wasn't crazy enough, Fukushima disaster website, TEPCO returns to profit on bailout and rate hikes. The operator of Japan's crippled Fukushima nuclear power plant said Wednesday that it swung to a net profit in the quarter to June after a government bailout and electricity rate hikes. They're profiting. They're profiting. That's about all I have for you today. Of course, if I missed anything, please attach your comments or videos below. Enjoy while you can.